Browning.
I just wanted to touch on a couple of things the Minister spoke of before. And one of them is as to whether Food Standards Australia New Zealand, or rather the joint partnership, is the right vehicle or place to be doing food standards and particularly labelling. And the amendment of Damien O'Connor's certainly might have locked us in and we might have lost some sovereignty, but what I would say is we have lost that already. The Minister is one Minister out of 10 when it comes to decisions out of that body, and what my amendment would have done would have said, let's do it here in New Zealand, and the bill is the right place to do it, because it only needs to say we'll set country of origin labelling regulations in New Zealand. It is the right vehicle, and it might be that the Minister does another supplementary order paper herself to do it to give us that level of sovereignty. And my concern around the sovereignty, and this may take a couple of calls to finish, I started earlier on part 3 on it around the genetic engineering issue and went through that process on where New Zealanders can make a submission to the process, and if they don't like it, the High Court is the only place they can go. And my concern is that successive ministers, and it goes right back through to the Labor governments as well, are being given advice that is not up to it. They are being given advice to say that this food has been checked, that it's okay, that the science is robust, and there's independent peer reviews or whatever around that, and you can accept that. But you know, as a minister, the Minister knows, and others that have been in that same position here, of the advice that you get. And I want to touch on some of that advice. The advice says accepting the approval that an organisation like GE Free New Zealand is likely to seek a review, and they did through the Regs Review Committee. MPI is saying they're confident with the correct processes. What do they know? We do not have proper independent advice going into our MPI or ESR when it comes to it. And it certainly is, when it comes in, is not independent. And nor is the advice going to FSANZ independent. When the independent scientists come out in the world, Sarah Leaney, Judy Carmon, even our Professor Jack Heinemann in Christchurch, and they get criticised snap like that all around the world. Why? Because there's such big vested interests from agribusiness for these foods, these bad, poor quality, very unhealthy and risky foods to come in. They want that because it's big business, because they've got the patents and they've got the control. And the last time that happened, and we've had them in front of the select committee here, the FSANZ scientists, and I put it to them that one of their chief advisors was not independent. And they say, oh, we barely talked to him. Rubbish. That same man, Langridge, from University of Adelaide, gets direct funding from one of those companies that applies for these things. And not only that, he was the chair of a committee to look at new technologies that they want to tick through so they don't go through the system. Those are the people that are advising you, Minister, to say that this stuff's good for New Zealanders, and it is not. And I've given you a tome of information on that, as I did Kate Wilkinson when she was Minister. They say, if not accepting the approval, it's inconsistent with scientific evidence. I'll say that is wrong. They say a majority of the members, you're 1 in 10, are likely to vote to accept the FSANZ approval. New Zealanders wouldn't expect this. New Zealand would be obliged to accept a majority decision. Where's our sovereignty now? As there are no exceptional grounds for us to opt out. A unilateral decision by New Zealand, to have its sovereignty, To reject the FSAN's approval would be a breach of the food treaty, would undermine the joint food system, which underpins, Mr Chair, I've got a bit to go on this. Thank you. Would undermine the joint food system, which underpins the valuable trade in food between the two countries. Well, whoopie-doo. If this stuff is not fit for purpose and is bad for New Zealanders to be consuming, why are we just bowing over because of the discomfort maybe in a trade deal? This is not good enough. The next point, a unilateral rejection of the approval which is based on international guidelines may also be inconsistent with New Zealand's WTO obligations. I don't think so. And the last one, and there, if a New Zealand response is delayed beyond 8th of April, that was for that early approval, or the option to go back and seek more information, this may cause irritation in the joint food system relationship. You know what this was about, everyone? This was about a food that is going to be doused with 2,4-D, glufosinate ammonium and glyphosate. 3 herbicides, none of them, no inspection or checking on the health safety of those in conjunction as they would be used. What do these guys do, FSANs? They look at each one independently, check out its MRLs and things and see whether it's going to be an issue. Not only that, they put up the MRLs so that the producers can do it. 3 different herbicides, let alone whatever else, not looked at properly, not safe, and they're telling you, tick it through please, because it will be an irritation to trade. Well, that's not fair to New Zealanders, and I think we do need to get that independence back, and we need to be doing it into New Zealand. Of course, they tell you, we will work with your office on a communication strategy in relation to any proposals by GE Free New Zealand or other groups to seek a review of the decision by the Regs Review Committee. Yeah, they'll get your messaging right, they'll get your PR right, but New Zealanders are stuck with it, and they're stuck with it through this bill if we don't use it properly or implement it properly, to have that sort of food in here, and all they can do is go to the High Court. If it's the RMA, you want to put the 3-storey building, you'd have your notification, you go to the council, you see other people's submissions, you have a decision. If you didn't like it, you have a hearing de novo at the Environment Court, then you might go to the High Court. You've got all those opportunities to have comment. This is our food. This is our food for our kids. It's coming through into the blood supply of women. It's going into fetal blood, the different parts of it. This is not good enough. And it's time that New Zealand stood up and had genuine sovereignty. That's why people want sovereignty, because they know as well that Codex, which is a fantastic organisation in principle, because if we're importing stuff, we want to know it's safe. We want to know about the international trade stuff. But it's been taken over. We know how we do the dairy part of it. We make sure we get in there for that influence. But these same companies that don't give a toss, apart from their bottom line of those unknown shareholders, Monsanto's, DuPont, Dow, they don't care about New Zealanders' health, but they are in there influencing those decisions. It changed from its original genuinely independent people. I know people that worked on it and said it was great, but it changed. So we do need sovereignty, and Part 5 of the bill is about that. There was opportunities there. I implore the Minister, I implore this House to make sure that we turn around the it's almost 90 different types of GE food that have been allowed in New Zealand, and it's not understood, except the independent science is coming out and it needs to be listened to. That might be in the minority because it's independent, there's no vested interest driving it. And so I'm hoping that this Minister will look at this in a much more robust way and have some further discussions with me, at least on it, but do make some changes. You can see why I want GE food labelled. You could have made it labelled. The rules are there. They are not comprehensive enough. Some GE food doesn't have to be labelled. But the stuff that is there is meant to have been labelled. The FSAN stuff says it's labelled, but since 2003 there's been no monitoring, and even in 2003, what do? They try to put out of business the people that were trying to be GM free. When they found 0.008% and someone that was intentionally going GMO-free but had clearly been contaminated, and fined the hang out of them. Put them off labelling GMO-free, but that was then seemed to be the trigger not to bother monitoring the bread in the supermarkets or anything. Thank you, Mr.
Let the question be now put.
Reno Turkutney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to speak on part 5 of this bill, and I really just wanted to focus